What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 32, I think. A special one today. We got a guest for you. It's Varsity Gaming. You can see him down there. If you're not familiar with Varsity Gaming, he's a YouTuber, Twitch streamer. He is a multiple Tesla owner, homeowner, a cat owner. What else? What am I missing here? What other accolades can I place on you?
I have Lego.
Okay. All right.
That's about it. I have Lego.
All right. So a pretty good introduction there, I think. But Varsity's going to be joining us for this discussion. Lots of big stuff to get into today. We had obviously the Tachanka Rework went into the test server, as well as a lot of other nerfs, buffs. We're going to be talking about that stuff, as well as the community reaction to them. Some other stuff as far as just the general state of the game and some hot topics, I guess you could say, within the community. But I guess let's open up today, gentlemen, with the Tachanka Rework, and let's just get into it. What are your thoughts there?
Personally, I don't think it's as overpowered as a lot of the initial reactions, laid it out to be. I think if you were watching when the reveal happened, the entire chat was just going off about how overpowered it was and that it was going to be the #1 operator. But I didn't get to play it too much. Test servers weren't too active. But from what I saw, he seems strong, but not overpowered.
I think that's a pretty fair take. Like I get the idea of if you combine him with certain things, he could, be extremely strong. But I just think so many of the arguments are they're very selective in, well, if I'm here, if this happens, then strong.
Yeah.
And it's like things rarely turn out to be exactly that way because there's opportunity cost. You like to fit him into a lineup, you got to take something else out. If you want to run this idea of the smoke and Tachanka together, well, then you're not going to be running Muzzy Mute to stop drones, right? You're probably not going to be able to force in a Vigil. Most likely can't have Jaeger and Wamai. You'll be missing intel, whatever it might be. I just think we're at a state now where almost no matter what comes out, it's hard for it to truly affect it too much because of the options you have. Sure, if he came out and he was smoke, but instead of having a shotgun that was like smokes, it was twice as good. And instead of having the SMG-11 as the sidearm, he had 2 of them, and his smoke grenades were twice the size. Sure, then I'm with you. That's just power creep, right? Reaper's video on it was pretty good. He did one for anyone that wants to see that. The idea that it's 5 seconds and you have 10 of them and the reload time is substantial, the swap time is substantial. You can't just, it's not like smoke, you can just throw one and then you're back on your gun, right? You can't reliably keep people from pushing somewhere. Like you just can't.
Yeah.
I think the other big factor is the bounce, where like smoke you can just place it, where Tachanka you have to bounce it.
It's both a curse and a blessing and a curse, because it allows you to get it in places that you can't get a smoke, which could be seen as a strength, but it's also less reliable. If you're wanting to land it in a specific location, it sometimes isn't as reliable as where that bounce is going to end up putting it.
Yeah, especially with destruction. If there's like a wall that's broken a little bit differently one time as opposed to another time, you're not going to have that same bounce.
Yeah.
But like even if you could place them exactly where you want it, I think that's okay. Let's put it this way: even if he is too strong, which it might be, maybe he should lose a little. Maybe there should be some tweaks, whatever. I don't even think that's as important as people make it out to be. It's more the reaction we have to new content.
Yeah.
There's a weird turn in things where if we go back far enough, I remember the same people that are angry that Tachanka is the way he is now, and the people that are saying that Siege is turning into a FPS MOBA instead, were the people saying that they like Siege because it was a mix between an FPS and a MOBA. It's like we need new characters, or well, we know they're coming whether we want them or not. It's gonna happen, and I think like we have to kind of adjust to that idea that things will come out, and if they don't change anything, then why add them? I think it's it's impossible. There's no way you thought about every scenario. Like at 10, 15, 20 minutes after the reveal, even if you got to play it in a test build, there is no way that you have practiced every possible scenario with it. You've thought of all the counters. You either go into it with the bias that I want to prove that this is too strong, or you go into it saying this is not too strong, and then you want to prove that. There's a very little just calm, fair, rational thinking behind it. And when it's being described, it's always like the worst case scenario being picked. I don't know why we're there, but it's a weird thing.
I think Flanked put it pretty decently as well, as when you go into a test server, you can try to give it the perspective of being overpowered, but you're going against a bunch of people who aren't really playing it seriously on test server. They're just kind of running around, just seeing what they can do. You're not going to have high level plays where you have to coordinate and set up Tachanka in a position to stop a plant at a very specific angle. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. The test server was a mess for trying to get any kind of indication as far as the Tachanka strength. I mean, in regular ranked, how many rounds is a plant attempted in regular ranked, let alone the test server? You know, and I think I mean, on the surface, that's what was jumping out to me with the Tachanka rework is his plant denial for like, you know, a default specific plant spot. And I really wasn't able to test that in a game. I did get a 10-man going, and I was able to get a little bit better feedback there. But even that is a little bit weird because, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever done like 10-mans with fans or people within your Discord, but it's a better representation than a test server. But in general, everybody's gunning for you. Like they want to come and kill, get flanked or varsity or Zoronic. Yeah. So it's still not like really representative of what it was, but it was better. And I'm grateful to have a community that I could do that with. I honestly, the Tachanka rework one of the most disappointing days I've ever experienced for this community. And I think the reason why is because it's a big deal, man. Like, it's the Tachanka rework. And, okay, forget strength. Just look at what we went from. We went from a meme operator with a turret to an operator who has an LMG with crazy destruction and shoots fire. Like, that's cool. Okay, maybe we'll have to nerf it down the road. Maybe it's too strong. But no matter what, for the average player, that's a huge win. Okay? And then as soon as it goes live, a lot of people, a lot of pros were just absolutely shitting on it as a concept and saying it's too strong. And imagine being a console player. So you don't get to go in the test server and try it out. You have this new gameplay of the Tachanka rework, and it looks really fun. And then the pros are trying to get it nerfed before you ever even try this fun new toy out. Like, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of people there that just don't react very well to that. And then not only that, take it a step further, a lot of those same pros were retweeting screenshots of somebody photoshopping a Warden loadout that had him getting the Alda. Like, that's how far we've come. That's the level of, like, I don't know if toxicity is the right word, but just hysteria. Maybe hysteria is the right word. After that reveal, the community on Twitter and Reddit felt hysterical about the state of the game, Tachanka, and all this. And it was really shameful because it should have been a really happy, fun day.
But isn't that like, that's just with almost everything right now. Like almost everything that gets implemented, changed, or whatever, there's this extreme negative reaction to, let's say, 10% of the things, and everything else is overlooked. Like, we forget every good thing instantly, and we will cling on to all the bad. I saw a video of someone shooting the grenades over, like, through skylights and through hatches and stuff to hit them in spawn in a custom game where the other guy had 25 health. Yeah. And using it as an argument that now you could spawn kill. No, you can't. If you're gonna sit there and waste your utility like that, be my guest. But that has nothing to do with the strength of a character. It's no different than throwing your smoke grenades in spawn if you wanted to do that. It's just a waste, right? And then using that to, like, say that all operators that come out are way too broken and way too strong, but they forgot a lot of them. Like, Amaru wasn't too strong when she came out. Yana wasn't too strong. Warden wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Since Lion, they've been pretty decent at least being quick to respond. Melusi was changed fairly quick. Now you can still be upset about it being oppressive or whatever you wanna throw at that, but it doesn't seem to have as big of an impact in comp as they made it out to be. If you look at the rounds and where they're placed and when they happen, it doesn't seem to be the deciding factor if you win or lose, or if you can do what you want to do, right? Goyo lost one shield. Took a while, sure, but you still need to give it enough time. We can't just, like, this isn't a world where comp players just get a game developer pass, and their opinion when they say this is too much instantly is that's just truth, right? Like, you can't get there. There are people that make a game and then you give your feedback, and if you give your feedback in a decent and respectable way and you're right, they're probably going to listen. You made a pretty good tweet today, Varsity, about just the way people phrase or give feedback and how likely you are to be listened to.
Yeah.
I think the problem with something like Tachanka right now is that I think he's going to get nerfed whether he's too strong or not, just because of the outrage. And I don't like seeing that, because now we might get into a place where balance is more affected by like the knee-jerk reaction and the first impression than it is by how it actually works. And I think that'll screw more with balance than anything else can.
I think it's also another, like, or an issue with the balancing is that the people who are complaining the most about it are obviously the pros, because it affects, how they're performing in their games, which makes sense. But what they're asking for wouldn't really affect ranked. Like Goyo, he was somewhat popular, and now he lost his shield and he's just gone. No one ever plays Goyo. But in Pro League, that was a good change.
Yeah.
Just not for rank. So, like, it's a really hard way to balance between, like, the casual player base and the professional player base when we're all on the same build, all playing completely different styles. Like, it's a lot for them to ask to just cater only to them.
Yeah, but then you get the skewed community perspective, because a lot will take the side of yes, the pro is saying this is true, this is true, even though it doesn't reflect in their gameplay, right? Like, even at Diamond or Chant or whatever, it doesn't resemble competitive at all in terms of placement, why things are done. They might copy the setups, but it doesn't have the same value. You don't get down to 20 seconds in ranked unless someone is saving KD outside.
Yeah.
Like, it really isn't that issue. I'm just afraid that the competitive side of the game starts dictating how the game should be made, and then it becomes less enjoyable for all the people that are there to watch the comp stuff. I don't know if maybe a pro mod would be the thing where they can tune, like when you go into custom, just allow people to remove or add certain gadgets from it. Maybe that could be it, but that's also a massive thing, I assume, in terms of game development. But we shouldn't get to a point where what's the community like? Community on Twitter is maybe 2% of Siege.
Yeah.
Right. But we take that as gospel. If the more people that agree with you, then it's definitely correct, right? It's just a little extreme how quickly some of these things can like skyrocket into this is the worst, the strongest thing ever, and then you see the actual like numbers of stuff, and it just doesn't add up with the reality.
That's Ace and Melusi are the perfect example of that. Okay, now I know I'm gonna get roasted for this because Melusi's gadget is oppressive, 100%. The Banshee is not fun to play against, but to say that it has broken the game, even at the competitive level, yes, her pick rate is high. Yes, Ace's pick rate is high. But it has not broken the game. That is like we have much different definitions of breaking the game than that. Lion broke the game, 100%. I'll say it. Mm-hmm. Lion and even that's a bit of a stretch. It didn't break the game. It just made the game. It was a mechanic that dominated the game that was not a good mechanic. I don't think that Ace and Melusi have done that personally. Now, I'll sit here and I'll be the first person to say releasing Melusi with bulletproof gadgets at a time when people were already complaining that there were too many bulletproof gadgets in the game was a mistake. But it has not broken the game by any means. I think it's important. A lot of people are comparing the Tachanka rework to Goyo. Correct me if I'm wrong here. My impression of the problem with Goyo wasn't the area denial. It was the 3 shields. and the fact that the attackers had to dispose of those shields with explosives. So it was a utility soak. It wasn't that it was denying area. That's not what impacted the rounds the majority of the time. What impacted the rounds was that by the time the attackers got through the ADSs and the Wom Eyes and the evil eyes and all that stuff, that they didn't have enough utility to deal with these 3 shields plus another deployable shield. So I don't think it's a fair comparison.
I do think it's kind of in the same boat, like what you said. It's a utility soak for Melusi. So like, they're pushing the site, and now they have to go past these banshees, which they don't have any more utility for. But it's not as bad because with the shields, you could play behind them. So like, if you can't clear it, they're just going to peek above and kill you, or set it off, and you can't push in at all. Whereas with the Melusi, it's like you can't really deal with it, but you can still defend yourself. You know where they're going to come from. You can hold the angle. You can react. It's just that you're slower, and I guess you're an easier target, which will affect a lot of people who are, really frag heavy. They want to be able to move. They want to be able to get into sight without being stopped with something that they can't deal with.
I think it would have been easier to sympathize with it if the way that Siege was played was, let's say, like, there's 3 Melusis in a row and you have to deal with each one of them. Mm-hmm. But that's not how rounds play out, right? Like, let's take Oregon top floor. You might have one on White Stairs, one around Armory or Master, and then one in Attic, right? Like, you are not that likely to have to deal with all of them. That's pretty rare. So I think there should always be one less than what you would likely have to deal with. So you have to choose where you place them. I think that's a fair thing to do. It puts some power in the or skill ceiling, whatever you want to use, in the hands of the person playing it. They have to think about how they use them. It's the same with ADSs, right? Like, an ADS well placed can have massive value. An ADS, a place where nothing ever gets thrown, means nothing. And now when we have like a ton of things that has to be removed, it just forces the meta into running Ash Sophia and some nades. And fair. Like, we had Mossy Mute meta. They didn't like that. We can't drone anything. Now we have utility meta where you got to remove all the stuff. We like, the meta will always change, and it will always be something that is strong and probably not that enjoyable to play against because you have to do certain things. And I don't see any setup where you wouldn't be able to like argue the same way you do now with utility, right? It'll be something else you have to deal with next time. That's Siege. That's why we can go through reinforced walls, make holes in floors, and all of that stuff. It's because at the end of the day, it's a puzzle, and that's kind of what makes it into this. If CS like has molly, smokes, and flashes that are, can blind an entire site so you can push in. Like, we have drones, cameras. I just think it's they're trying to get something that will never happen, and there's no point in continuously fighting for it to be that way. Because if they get their way now with removing the utility meta, something else is going to take its place, and I don't think they know what it is, or they know what they want.
I 100% agree with you. Let me just add a counterpoint. That it's not disagreeing with you at all, but let me throw something at you here. I think no matter what, like your point there that we're always going to have a meta is always going to be true. The one thing I'll say right now that I want to change, and I think that it is a realistic possibility, is I want a little bit more freedom for what attacking operators can look like, or what attacking operators can be brought. And right now with the utility meta and the bulletproof gadgets, you're a little restricted on the attacking side as far as what operators you can bring because you need so much explosive or soft destruction or whatever you want to call it. And I would like to see a meta evolve that allowed for a little bit more flexibility on what attacking operators you can bring.
But do you think we can get there without them then losing their minds? Because 6 months ago, we had, oh my god, Siege is too frag heavy. Now, oh my god, Siege is too utility heavy. Where is the...
You give everybody a flare gun. A flare gun is the key.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I find it fun with Ace because Ace is kind of like the solution to half of this. Ace can remove shields. We don't see that used a lot. We see him run instead of another Heartbreaker. Right? He has smokes, really good gun. He's extremely strong. He helps with the issue that was there. Mm-hmm. And if we go back and watch just this last like couple of weeks is competitive games. This utility thing isn't as bad as it seems.
Agreed.
Maybe that's because they're getting very efficient at dealing with it, and they do it in a structured way, and they're steadfast and stick to a certain plan that works there. Maybe they're more limited to not being able to go and do a secondary strat if they have commit to something. Fair, I like maybe, but it doesn't seem like this horrible hell that they are trying to make it out to be. And when I play in my little low rank games and try to have fun in Siege, I'm not constantly stepping into a new thing where, oh my god, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I think we're getting very, very trigger happy on some of these things where the second you die, it's definitely not your fault. Like, there is some gadget or something I can blame, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Goo Mine, the Melusi, the Echo Drone, the Meister Cam, the Smoke Grenade, whatever it was, I would have won that round. It's an unfair stance to take because it's the game you play.
I think
and this year one. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to throw in. I think a lot of the concerns also for that of like why it's different from Pro League to ranked is just the people who play solo don't have teammates to rely on to help clear out the utility. Yeah. Whereas like if you're in a 5-second, you're like, okay, we need a Zofia, like go clear out the Melusis. You do this. If you're solo, you're just kind of running around doing your own thing. And if the Melusi's not cleared, you're kind of just screwed there when you try to push in.
True. It's a good point. I think we're all kind of on the same page here, and I think going back to the tweet that you put out earlier regarding the type of feedback that you give the devs, I guess that's a question I'd like to throw at you guys. Like, where's the line? Where do we go? We all. I think if you're on Twitter talking about Siege, you love the game for the most part. If you are on Twitter talking about Siege, you're a passionate fan, or at least you were at some point. So how do we provide feedback about things that can be improved in the game and do it in a way that isn't, like you were saying, going up to somebody and just saying, hey, your haircut looks like shit. Like, how do we do that in a constructive way and keep the conversation civil without damaging the game? Because I think there is a point where you damage the game, and I think there's a point where you're driving people away from the game. Maybe people who would normally be willing to try it or get back into it. Maybe people who played, a year ago but have kind of put it down, and they're looking for a time to get back into Siege. If they see you on Twitter saying the game is garbage right now, they're probably not going to pick it back up. So how do we do this?
Oops, sorry. Trying to think. I think we need more methods of communication. I don't think anyone's really saying that Ubisoft is super open to receiving a lot of criticism, which is why a lot of people take to Twitter and immediately just start the hate threads, because that's like the only way to really get a reaction. Right now, the best avenue of communication we have is R6 Fix, but that's only for bugs and issues, not really for saying, hey, I think Melusi should lose a Banshee. And that's why people take to Reddit and Twitter, like I said. And I think if we had more feedback from the devs on those platforms in, I guess, more of like a professional sense instead of like individual accounts, maybe like the Ubisoft account itself is responding or at least saying that they're looking into it and acknowledging it, then people would be a bit happier. But right now, a lot of people just scream on Twitter, have no response, and then they say the devs are ignoring them because there's no way for them to communicate. Right. So it's just a little frustrating.
I think it's dangerous when we look at Twitter because the same people that I see doing that don't read the dev blogs. Mm-hmm. So if they go out of their way, because they don't have to, like there are plenty of people, like Valve doesn't seem to care at all, like publicly, right? But of course they care about their game. They just don't want to justify why they do what they do. That's their game. That's their decision. When a designer's note comes out or something where they state this change is made for this and this and this reason, no one, like for the week that dev blog came out, I'm still getting the same question in chat. No one read that.
Yeah.
And that's on the players. Like if the information is being put out there and you don't like consume it, then there's nothing more they can do. I think the dangerous thing with if they start communicating more than they do now, because I think they're actually communicating a bit too much. I think people will start demanding more. and more and more. And I don't think a game should ever be run by the community, because the thing that runs a game to the ground the quickest is the community all wanting it their way, because they cannot agree. They
And
can't
we
agree
don't
on
know
what
what we
map to
want.
play. No, exactly.
We don't know what we want. We really don't. You know, one thing I will say, and do you guys agree with this? Do you think that the Tachanka rework should go straight into comp? Let's say that, you know, on Thursday, what's in the test server comes to the live build. Do you think that the Tachanka rework should go into comp at that time?
It won't.
Okay.
It just
I think it would be fine with a quarantine until the end of the season at least.
Agreed. Why didn't Ubi announce that? Like, do you think that could have helped as far as the communication? If Ubi with that gameplay trailer would have released, by the way, Tachanka is going to be quarantined from comp play until the end of the season, whenever, you know, Zero would be introduced. Tachanka will be introduced at that time, pending anything. Do you think that would have changed anything?
Nah. The comp players, like, they know what's going into quarantine. Of course it is. And like any rational person will figure that one out, right? Like they're not gonna throw, like, Tachanka is a new operator. It's not just a rework. It is a new operator. There's no way he's getting thrown into comp, like, just out of the blue. I refuse to believe that. And I'm pretty sure the comp players, like, are fully aware that, of course,
they
he's
were
not
tweeting
getting
out
in.
Warden Alta SMG 11 loadouts. now come on.
Yeah, but in all fairness, I think a lot of that is because it feels good when people outrage with you, because like that's pretty much what Twitter's being used for, right? Like you have an opinion on something and you want people to pat your back and say, yes, this is true. So you go out there and then you get your crowd with you to hype you up, and yes, let's fight them. I think a really reasonable thing to do is do not give feedback before you know what you're giving feedback on.
Exactly. I got roasted for that.
I find it. Yeah,
that's where we're at in this community right now. I put out a tweet saying, "Hey, can we all just like calm down until we play it?" Like, I get that he looks strong. I agree, he looks strong.
Shill.
But let's just play it
Sell
first.
out.
And I got roasted for it.
Corporate show.
Yeah. So
like, that's where we're at.
It's a massive pet peeve of mine that people want to have an opinion on something that they don't yet know. It's like when people have an opinion on it, like they hear a leak. Maybe it's legit, maybe it's not, and they're like outraged about this leak, right? Oh my god, this thing is happening. Let's just wait and see. And even if it's happening, let's maybe have you play it long enough that you understand what it is you're giving feedback on. I don't mean just jumping into TS, playing it for 5 minutes and go, yep, this is too strong. Like, how does it work in a team composition? Is it this magical beast that you think it is? Or are there ways to deal with it? There are so many things in Siege where it took months and months to learn certain things about that operator and how they could interact. And even in Pro League, like, they still learn new stuff. Impact tricking wasn't a day one thing. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe we should allow time to play it and for the operator to develop so we can give feedback that matters. That's the problem. Because right now, I imagine, like, if I was sitting there as a game designer or operator thingy, whatever it's called, and I just see this feedback, like 9,000 people going, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. That dilutes all the actual info. Because you have a ton of people that have an opinion on it because of tweets. Because it's easy to jump on the bandwagon. It feels good to be part of a group that, yeah, we all agree that this is too strong, but none of them have played it yet, or none of them have spent enough time that they have a valid, like, understanding of what they're actually talking about. Pro or non, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you haven't actually tried it. Then the feedback you're giving is not based on anything else than emotion. And I don't think that's a good thing, because now, what does that game dev do?
Right.
They're getting like 9,000 messages saying this is too strong, and they're looking at it and they can see, like, actually statistically this is under tweaked a little. We should actually buff it a little from the numbers that we have right now, right? I don't believe that's true for Tachanka though.
Yeah.
But, like, do you just ignore all that info? Because then they're gonna be angry. Oh, you didn't listen to us. Do you listen to them and then maybe screw up the balance of it just to make people happy right now, and then you have to tweak it again later? Like, at some point, it kind of feels like this kindergarten where we have a lot of people that don't yet really have any experience or knowledge about this that freak out completely, and there needs to be an adult somewhere in that loop that says, shush, stop.
Yeah.
Just, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna see what happens, and then we're gonna react to it.
I think one of the other issues is also that no matter what happens, like whatever they release, you're gonna have, like you said, like 9,000 people saying this is overpowered, nerf it, nerf it. But you don't see the other side of like probably the 30,000 people who are just content and they're happy. It's like reviews on a website for a restaurant. You're not going to go in and see a million people saying this was amazing, I loved it. You're going to see a lot more comments saying this one thing was awful, I hated it, don't ever go here, because people love to react negatively more than positively. So
Yeah, 100%. Like, you are way more likely to mention things that you don't like, and that's definitely something that we forget. And I definitely forget that, like, on a daily basis, that the feedback you get, the people that are just happy with what they're doing, the ones that, you know, they come home from work, they play a little bit, and then they go about their business and do whatever. Like, they could have had a really fun day of Siege. They could have met no cheaters, had no issues with any of the operators. Maybe there's one or two things that they want to change, but they're sitting there thinking, it's a game. You know, I can't have everything I want. And they're happy. No problem. Then there's the one guy who got, you know, spawn peeked from a bullet hole that will create fury. Like, this is the worst thing ever. I hate this game. It's horrible. Why didn't they fix this? And that's the one person that gets all the retweets and the likes from all the other ones that had a bad day. So it's definitely a signal boost to have a negative or a hot take on things. You can see that with YouTube thumbnails and titles as well. They do better.
Dude, I've never sensationalized in a YouTube thumbnail or title ever. So stop right there, all right? Because I feel exposed. I actually said that in my Tachanka review video, I guess you could say. I said that I need to work on not sensationalizing as much, because it's the whole community is doing that right now, and if I want it to change, then I need to be a part of the problem. I mean, it's a catch-22, because I want people to click on my videos, so I want to make them as attractive and as clickable as possible. But I also need to find that balance between, you know, doing that and then also not adding to the hysteria around the new topics. So
I think if you approach it for like sensationalizing the videos as more of a joke, like that's usually the approach I try to take, where I'll be like, this is so overpowered, and I'll have like one clip where there's just 5 people standing in a room not looking at me. I just kill all of them, like, oh my god, it's overpowered. And people understand it's more of a joke rather than like a serious accusation about it. But there are unfortunately a lot of YouTubers now who just like get clips and copper lobbies and then say like, this is the craziest thing ever, like Ubisoft needs to nerf it. And it doesn't look good for any of us, really, when that happens.
We were talking, I think it was last week, we were talking, and I mentioned that there's a gameplay YouTuber that I happened to watch a video. I don't normally watch their videos, but I happened to see one in some setting, and I was keeping track, and I think the first 5 clips were all from different accounts. Now, full disclaimer, they could possibly have changed their name, and maybe that accounts for like 1 or 2 of those accounts. But legitimately, if you're a gameplay channel passing your clips off as I'm one of the best players in the world, or I'm nasty at this game, but you're playing on 5 accounts, what does that mean?
I mean, even like, it's just it's so easy to if I upload a highlight video, that is around a week of just playing. Like, it's the best clips of that entire week that makes it in, right? And then we'll throw like 1 or 2 funny fails in that happens because we're human and that's funny. But you could really make that look different. Like, I could intentionally take massive risks every single round and only show the ones that work. And then you look really good. And then you can use that as your thing, right? It's a little different if they can then go and watch a stream afterwards and see, okay, this isn't happening every game,
right?
Or every round, right? Like half of the game should go maybe just positive or something like that, and the other half you're getting slammed. But you still have some YouTube videos that are from good clutches and stuff. But I think that's just the whole Instagram culture. We want to show the best parts.
For sure.
I don't fault anyone for doing it. But when you start adding too much on it, then it's a little weird. And the same goes with the whole feedback thing we were talking about. Like, your feedback is extremely valuable. Like, it really is. Just don't scare people away when you give it. Especially if you're a content creator, that is probably the dumbest thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because if you scare 1 or 2 people away, they're not going to bring their friends into play. They might stop playing. They're not going to, like, eventually not going to watch your videos because they're going to find something else, right? Like, it's a counterproductive thing. And if you're one of the bigger YouTubers or streamers or comp players or whatever, there are people that you can talk to that will read what you say and will talk to other people about it that have some influence in the game, right? It's not like they're like, if some big boy tweets out something, that will be talked about
Yeah.
by the devs, right? They might not agree, but it will be a conversation. And I think some of the big tweets will actually slow things down more than they'll speed them up, because now you have to have an emergency meeting that 20,000 people are freaking out about something, right? Whereas maybe it was on the way. The Blurry Hollow was a good example. That came out on TS. I was pretty vocal about it. Like 10 minutes into TS, I DM'd one of them and one of the devs and said, "What the hell is this?" And I took some screenshots, sent it. I made a tweet about it, and it's fixed now. Maybe it took a week too long. Maybe it took a couple of days too long. Whatever. Maybe it should never have happened. I don't care. But it got changed. But then seeing other go out and be like, "Why the hell did you change this? This is so dumb. Why is this even a thing? How did it make it through?" And we got an explanation last time, right? Like, well, they had to change it from I think it was from a 2D to a 3D element, and that's how it got through, and that was intended not to be the way that it was, and now it's fixed. I think that's a more rational way to do it, is just say, this shouldn't happen. Is there a chance that is this gonna get fixed? Is it gonna get changed, or is it something we have to like start getting used to? Because at the end of the day, I honestly just wanted to know, like, if it doesn't change, then I'm just gonna have to start accepting it because it bothers me. But I'm not gonna keep being mad about it if it doesn't change. Like, I don't know. Maybe if you're 15, you can afford that, but like, I feel like at some point you're gonna have to like move on, right? Like,
Yeah.
Some things are not gonna be the way you want them, and just that's how it is, man.
I think that's a good way to put it. The only issue for people, at least on Twitter, is like, I don't even remember last week what hot takes people put out there complaining about the game. I've already forgotten about them. Ubisoft probably has them written down somewhere and they're going to tweak them, and that change will probably come out like in a month or so. I'm going to have completely forgotten about everyone complaining. I'm not even going to remember why they changed it. They're just going to change it and then like, oh, okay, that's different now. So like, it's good that they're listening and these takes can usually be heard, but since it can take so long for them to actually implement them, the outrage has already happened. People have moved on. They're not going to be thankful for the change unless it's something big like Lion finally getting the nerf, which also took way too long, took 6 months.
Yeah.
So like, you have to really remember what you're angry about and hold on to it for a while in order to be appreciative of them changing it. Otherwise, it just kind of falls flat.
Sure.
And then it looks worse on Ubi, even though it's not their fault. They're doing what they can, and people are just impatient.
So what's fast enough? I think I've always wanted to hear people's opinion on this, and I don't think we've ever touched on it here flanked. What's fast enough? If something comes out and it's not the way it should be, whether it's like an extreme thing or not, how fast is fast enough, do you guys think?
I think obviously it depends on the scenario, right? I think what Varsity mentioned with Lion, 6 months was too long. I think you can make the case that wouldn't happen in today's world because of the workflow that they have at the studio and the way that they have balancing cells and stuff like that. I don't think that Lion would take that long to fix in today's world. But so like if Tachanka is released as is and he's blatantly overpowered, how long is too long before it's tweaked? I would say I would say anything longer than 3 weeks at blatant overpower is too long in my opinion. Now
So that would mean that
say
by the
about the
time,
same.
yeah, but then now we have to, you have to take the work process in here, right?
Sure.
Because 3 weeks, so that means that by the time you get the feedback and you have like proven that, okay, this is actually true. This isn't just an emotion or a feeling, that like this is true. Maybe that's a week in that you have the data and people have been complaining for a week. Now you have to start tweaking it. If it's just a simple thing like changing a mag size, whatever, something like that, we know for a fact that can be done very easily, right? Like, they've mentioned that plenty of times. We can take away one thing here. We can do this. They don't like taking away gadgets. They've said that publicly a few times because they want to make sure that the player has some sort of, like when you pick Jaeger, you want to place ADSs. Well, okay, Jaeger's probably the worst example. When you pick an operator, you want to use their gadget. Like if Maestro only had one camera,
yeah,
that wouldn't be as fun, right?
right.
So you want to have those toys to play with. If they have to change the gadget, that's going to take more than 3 weeks. Whether anyone wants it or thinks it's enough. Like, you can't make a baby in less than 9 months just by having more people.
Well,
Some things just take time, right?
Tachanka's a perfect example of that. A lot of people are saying, well, he should only have 8 rounds instead of 10. That's a complete redesign of his gadget because his gadget has 5 slots for the ammunition. So, I mean, you think about the work that has to go into that. Now, if they want to reduce the amount of time that the fire is up from 5 seconds down to 3, they can probably do that with, the snap of the fingers is probably extremely rude, but much easier. But when you're talking about a complete artistic redesign of the gadget, because you're going from 5 in the magazine down to 4, that's a lot of work involved with that. So I think it's different on a case by case. And I think this actually transitions perfectly into the Melusi rework, okay? Because part of the things in this midseason patch is that Melusi is getting nerfed. She's losing the T5 and she's getting the MP5. Oryx is gaining the T5. So basically, Oryx and Melusi are switching primary SMGs. That's the way to look at it. A lot of people unhappy with that Melusi nerf because it's not addressing her gadget, which people view as the problem. People think the Banshee is oppressive, and the fact is that this is not going to change the Banshee at all. What are your guys' thoughts?
I personally agree that I don't think it's going to change anything. Like I looked at that and I was just kind of disappointed because I think it's a good buff for Oryx. I think the T5 is amazing for him, but the MP5 on Melusi is just going to, I guess, decrease some of her fragging potential. But the Banshee, like you said, is the concerning part. Nothing's changing there. Something has to be done about that instead.
Well, it's hard because if the MP5 makes less people want to play her because they win less gunfights, then it gets the job done.
Indirectly.
Yes.
Because you're dealing with Banshees less. Yeah,
like, I get the idea that a gadget should never be something where when you have to deal with it, you think, oh, no. But I think that's every gadget. Like, every single gadget, no matter what, attack or defender, sucks when you don't have what it takes to deal with it. It always does. It also sucks to get shot through a soft wall when it wasn't reinforced or whatever, but like you're gonna lose and losing feels bad. I just think like the weapon changes is probably the quickest way. When we heard that with Doc, ACOG getting removed, basically slammed him into the ground, right? That's surprising to me that it had that big of an impact. And he's played less in comp than he used to, way less. Then okay, maybe it's because there's new operators out that are stronger, but that's the flow. I don't think unless you nerf the gadget or change the gadget so much that it doesn't like, it has to be an empty shell of what it used to be, or people are still gonna be upset. Because what pisses you off is when you are stuck in that Melusi and you get shot. You correlate that to the fault of the gadget and nothing else. That's what made you lose, right? The same goes with, like, that was why Lion felt horrible, is you hear that boom, 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 and now you see that if I move, I die. And you only remember the ones where you got wall banged because of that. I don't see how they can fix it by, like, you could change it to half the size radius. It'd pretty much just be useless, but it would be placed in certain spots on certain maps where you would still die, and it would still bother you. So I don't know how they can ever get to a point where people will be like, "Yep, this is fair."
I think
So personally, for me, if like for what you said, if they reduce the radius by half, while that would be annoying to still die to it, I feel like I'd blame it in a way that I'm like, I understand why I died to it. Whereas right now, I'm just like, I walk into a room, I'm screwed. I can't push in unless we deal with this. Whereas I'm like, okay, we have to deal with it in a certain way, and if we don't, we'll get punished. Right now, with the radius being so large, it's just kind of, you can put it anywhere and it hurts you. Whereas if it's smaller, you have to be very tactical about it, and it
It's a lot
rewards the
smaller than it used to be,
defenders.
right?
Yeah, they lessened it a
yeah.
little bit.
I think they lessened it by
33%, I
30.
think.
Yeah, 33. Yeah. But is that really the difference though? If it's the size it has now, or if it's 25, like is that all? I don't think it's gonna have the effect that you might think it will.
I think it would just be less frustrating to deal with as soon as you see it. Because when I go into a room and I see a Banshee there, I'm just like, I don't know what to do here. If I'm someone who can't deal with it, I just kind of can't push there. Whereas if I know it's a lot smaller and I know it's only going to affect a certain area, I can take like a different approach of trying to get in there. You can't just block off a whole room. You can only block off a certain area.
Sure.
I think a more extreme example of what they're going for with this nerf, and we'll see if it plays out this way. But is Dokkaebi. So Dokkaebi has super oppressive utility. When you think about her phone call, the fact that unless you're standing in a mute jammer, it's going to make your phone ring and make noise. You have no control over that, and either you let it ring or you turn it off. Like Dokkaebi has super oppressive utility, but she also has horrible weapons. Maybe there's somebody out there who is an absolute beast with that DMR, and I'm sure there is. But for the average player, you don't want to play a DMR and the SMG-12. You want to, like, if they gave Dokkaebi the R4C, Dokkaebi's utility would have to be nerfed in order for that to happen. But because she has bad weapon selections, people aren't bringing Dokkaebi as often. Therefore, your phone isn't ringing enough, like as much. There was a time when Dokkaebi's pick rate was higher, when the SMG-12 was really good, and it was awful. Like, do you remember the Lion Dokkaebi Blitz Jackal meta? It was awful. It was honestly awful, but because they nerfed that SMG-12 so much, Dokkaebi's pick rate has now got to the point where maybe 1 out of every 10 rounds, maybe if you're lucky, that might even be high. I don't know if Dokkaebi even has a 10% pick rate, but the utility is still oppressive. The utility is still there, but because she's picked so little, it's not as much of a problem. I think that's what they're going for with her. Whether it plays out that way or not, we'll see. Is the MP5 enough to dissuade players? And then the other thing that I would mention is that when it comes to comp, generally, like Castle's a perfect example. They will bring Castle because his utility is so good, even though he's bringing that UMP. So how much of a difference is this going to have in comp? That remains to be seen as well.
I think we also have to be fair and say, is it a problem in comp, or do they not like it?
Right.
Because for, like, in ranked, sure, it's annoying when I meet a Banshee and I don't have what it takes to deal with it, and maybe the teammates aren't responding, whatever, right? Like, that sucks. But it does that for every operator. Literally everything I can meet is horrible if I have to deal with it myself. It's a 5v5 game. It's more fun when you work together, even if it's with randoms. It's more enjoyable if you can have these, like, tiny little teamwork segments, right? Let's focus the adjustment on majority of the player base having fun. I think that's the most important. And then comp shouldn't look like some clown fiesta where some of the things are so strong that it's the only thing we'll ever see.
Agreed. I like that. I like
But
that summary.
If we're judging things by how often they're played, and that's the strength, then there's some OG operators that need some massive nerfs.
True.
Right?
Like Jaeger.
Yeah, Smoke. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Smoke, Jaeger, Sophia, Ash. Like, but you can't nerf those because they're being brought for the reason to deal with the other stuff. I truly believe that if they stop doing anything on Siege right now, like didn't touch anything, you're gonna see the meta eventually evolve out of this. Someone will find a way to deal with it. Things will change, and a new meta will come out. Then you can argue, should the developers be changing the meta based on feedback from the competitive players so they get the meta that they want, or should they provide a product and then see who will, like, how the players will develop the meta in the future? I lean heavily towards the latter. I think that is a healthier way to do it, and if the community can make sure that they don't destroy the game before that happens. The game's definitely not perfect, like far from it. It has plenty of bugs and plenty of issues, but there's no alternative to it. So if you want something like Siege, this is what you get, right? Ubi should fix all the bugs without a doubt. I think everyone will agree with that. There's always going to be some. CS had this mega scandal with coaching for the past 5 years. Coaches have been able to have some sort of bug or glitch where they could like sit in a spectate cam and watch, basically like a camera in Siege, right?
Jeez.
We aren't the only game that has these things. Far from. But we act like we're the only ones that have these issues. Because whenever we go to Twitter, it's like, oh yeah, why isn't this fixed? Oh, look at this game, look at this game, look at this game. Valorant came out, we have the best engine cheat, and 48 hours in there was blatant aimbotters in it. Like, it's gonna be it's a game, and it's a live game, so it's gonna change. There's gonna be messes here and there. But if the community, I think the community is the only thing that's gonna be able to break it. If we get too negative about things, and it's not that, like, there's nothing wrong with saying I don't like this or I don't like this, but it's the constant, like, it's like people have been pampered to a little too much. Like, we kind of get what we want when we ask for it.
Yeah.
It might take a while, but we're very used to getting our way. And I'm afraid that if Ubisoft at some point says, you know what, we're making it this way, then people will just freak out. And I kind of fell in love with a game because someone chose to make a certain game, and it happened to be something that I enjoyed. I can't go in and say that I want these and these things changed and then the game will be better. Maybe I'll enjoy it more. That doesn't mean the people around me will. And that's what I'm afraid of, is that we are like driving the game in a direction where we don't want the product that we're asking for. And I think we all became balance experts overnight playing Siege, because I see everything from champs to silvers to pros to your average Joe, all knowing exactly what it takes to fix things.
Yeah.
And it's rarely the case.
I think.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Varsity.
Okay. I think one of my concerns of what you said about how whether the dev should react sooner or whether they should just let it rest is that it's very hard to get someone back into a game after you've lost them. As soon as they move on to something else, usually they're gone. So if they wait a while and then they're like, okay, we see that Tachanka was actually overpowered, now we should nerf him after, let's say, a whole season. Those people are gone. It's going to be very hard to get them back, and then the player base would presumably continue to decline over time. So if they react too slowly, they risk alienating the people who want the changes that ultimately needed to come. But there could also be the issue, like you said, if they react too quickly, it might not be for the better of the game and could have other negative effects that we don't really know about. But I'm just more concerned about them losing the audience that they already have because they refuse to change. In some cases.
Is that I'm not sure if that's true, because games that get like massive new changes, like a big patch comes out or a rework or the whatever, seem to always, like, maybe they don't bring the exact same player back, but they bring new players in and they keep growing. Even though we had Lion, Siege kept growing.
I think this is perfect, because both of what you guys are saying, in my opinion, is true. However, I think that the number of players that are leaving Siege because of toxicity issues, because of player behavior issues, because the number of players that stop playing Siege because of cheaters, because of smurfs, because of DDoSing, because of mouse and keyboard and console,
because of people instead of the game.
Yes. That number is probably 10 times the amount of people that have stopped playing Siege because Lion was overpowered. And to your point, Zeronic, because I agree with what Varsity's saying. Like if I don't want to play, if I'm not having fun playing against a meta, I'm gonna stop playing. Okay. But what might bring me back is I see this news clip, Tachanka got reworked. What? I haven't played Siege in a year. Tachanka was a meme operator. Now he can walk around with his turret. This is crazy. Okay, let me look about this a little bit more. And then whenever I look at it, the entire player base is just shitting on it, saying how overpowered and broken it is. Okay, well, Siege is still a flaming pile of shit. I'm not going to try it anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like where I feel like we're at right now.
But like that's what I mean. How likely is it that someone stops because of one bug or like an opera? Okay, sure. If there's enough of them, I get it. If you're like a very competitive player and you want to play ranked, the only thing you see is cheaters. You're probably gonna eventually take some breaks. But I don't think the people really move away as much as we might think. If they do, it's probably because they stop playing. Like the games that I used to play, the reason that I stopped playing them is because something new and better came out that I wanted to go and play. If you play Call of Duty, well, you probably played most of them, right? Like even the bad ones, you probably played a few of those, and if you play Battlefield, you probably played a lot of those. I don't think people just leave it and then never come back, and even if they do, that's gonna happen either way. I just think it's more likely that it's the community scaring people away than it's ever the game.
I stopped playing
It
Modern
could be.
Warfare because of the balance. I'll say that. The shotgun, that 725 or something shotgun in that was just broken. Took them too long to fix it.
1877 or something.
Yeah, and I just never went back. But sorry, what were you saying, Varsity?
It's obviously like we're all gonna have our own skewed perceptions based on like who we talk to. And I will say that I noticed the biggest drop-offs in like my group of friends when Grim Sky came out because of Clash. Because all my friends were like
Interesting.
ranked stars, and I went from having a full stack every single day to then playing solo for like the next 3 seasons because almost all of them left Siege because they
Because
didn't
of
want to deal
Clash.
with a shield. Yeah,
Interesting.
and then there have been other operators that have kind of like caused that as well. Melusi is starting to be one of those for some people, especially in ranked. I've noticed a lot more now. Most of my friends have switched over to unranked with me. I don't really play ranked too much unless I'm with the stack, but in unranked we like have a lot more fun. Whereas in the higher ranked elos, it's just not fun anymore because of certain, I don't want to say abuses, but like basically them just taking advantage of what they can with the meta, and it's just not as fun to play against, and that causes people to leave. From my experience, that's probably more higher ranked players than your casuals who don't really pay attention to too much of that stuff.
Interesting.
But I feel like that leads into being more of a people issue than a game issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, you'd be
Because,
right.
like
Yeah.
at to some extent, the reason that it isn't fun at that level isn't necessarily because of Clash or Melusi. It's because people are willing to go that far to get that last part of Elo. It's the same reason that people will glitch abuse or use reversed reinforcements to shoot through pixels in walls and stuff. Like I think it's the hunting of that last little extra inch of whatever you can get without cheating that makes things unfun. Because like I agree with you. I just don't think that the operator itself is going to be what scares people away from it. Because if you like a game or if you have fun with it, then you can take quite a lot of things being not exactly the way you want them, right? And especially if you're a Siege player, you're probably pretty good at solving certain problems and like figuring ways around stuff. The content is thriving in terms of how to deal with this and this and this, right?
Yeah.
I just think the basically what Flank said, that it's probably 10 times higher with people leaving because of toxicity, cheating, people just being shitters in game. Like it seems like the ranked experience has more about it's the pride of who can get the highest instead of playing against the people that you should be playing against. If that makes sense.
Exactly. And that's had such a detrimental effect on the game, because to me, playing ranked right now almost feels like a waste of time, because not because I'm not winning, but because I don't have good matches. Not very many of my ranked matches feel good. And And I've talked about it 100 times. I'm not gonna beat it again, but I want to log on to Siege. I want to play ranked against people who are at a similar skill to me, and I want to have close matches. I don't want to play against Smurfs. I don't want to play against cheaters. I don't want to play against a well-organized 5-stack with 1 diamond and 4 unranked players while I'm trying to solo queue through gold. Like, I don't want to do that. And if I do that enough, it makes me feel like I'm just wasting my time.
I agree. I think definitely people probably have more of an impact. And I can speak a little bit about the smurfing part because you answered in one of your Get Answered videos about my series, The Copper to Diamond, which I actually am not doing this season, but how I get my account, drop it down to Copper 2, 3, 4, whatever I can get it to, and then I solo queue all the way up trying to get to Diamond. And a lot of people give me flack for it, saying like how I'm smurfing, I'm going to make people quit because I'm just going to be shitting on them. But personally, I always try very hard to not try. Where like I'll be in bronze lobbies and I'll say, okay, I can only go Oryx with the bailiff, and like I have to charge people down before I shoot them. So like I feel like I'm at least giving them enough of a chance that they can beat me, whereas I'm not just running around as Ash, sprinting into sight, killing every single person I see.
And how do you get your account down to Copper? I know you told me one time, but tell the audience, because I think that's a question a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people out there that think that you just throw your matches and that you're affecting the matches that way. Like they don't know how you get your account down that low.
So there's 2 methods. I have to switch it now because the first method doesn't work anymore. What I used to do was I would go into a match, I would get us to like 3-0, or like we're about to win, it's a 5v1, and then I would leave. I'd get a 15-minute abandon penalty, but I would still get a loss and they would get a win. So my teammates would still be fine. Or if like we're actually losing, genuinely getting shit on, I just take the loss. But now they've changed it where if you leave right as you're about to win, you still get the win. So I can't do that anymore. So now what I do is I have 4 people from my community just queue with me. We win the first round, we throw the second round, and then we surrender. So I guess you could call it like a bit, I guess, boosting a little bit those random teams that we come into contact with. But I don't think that would have enough of effect to like really cause anything if it's 10, 15 matches. And each time it's a different team that's getting like 50 elo from that match.
Yeah, and at least you're making other people win. I would have had a very different outlook on it if you were doing it, like if it was the opposite way. If you were like over 20 matches just stealing 50 elo from another team, like that would have been kind of shitty, right?
Yeah.
But it like you won't skew it by solo queuing your way up there, and also no one's getting harmed by you doing it. If you were to purposefully stay in, let's say, Copper 2.
Exactly.
And play Ash for like every single round and see how many kills you could get, then I'd have a big issue with it because that's just putting people down.
And if you took those clips and then uploaded them how a champion plays against Copper, you know what I mean? But that's not.
No one would ever do
that.
That's
not the point of his content either. That I think,
exactly.
And I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm. And I've definitely noticed, at least in the last season, when I was trying to rank up, I had the hardest time in Copper. Because 2 of my first 3 matches, I had 2 people on my team who were throwing. Like they would stand in doorways, preventing us from getting in. They'd team kill us, they'd damage us, do whatever they could to make us lose. And ultimately, like I had to try really hard because I don't want my other 2 teammates to lose the match. So it's basically a 1 or 3 versus 7 at that point. And we did lose because I just couldn't do anything. They were completely blocking me out of sight. I was just fucked. And then I had another instance in the other match where I actually went up against a 5-stack of diamonds in Copper. Like they all dropped down and then were just shitting on Copper kids. Like I looked up all their accounts. All of them had been diamond the previous season. So like there's definitely people who are abusing it, and it's not fun at that rank, especially for real Coppers. But yeah, I try very hard to make sure I'm not doing that because I know how unfun it would be to just get shit on relentlessly with no choice in the matter.
But it's fun that like, so the reverse happened at the higher elo as well, right? I think just in the past week, it's been like pretty much 25% of each one of these examples. So one is a game against like really good players, and it's really enjoyable. They're all like levels 300, Challenge League players, pro players, whatever, and it's a good game, win or lose. You know, going into it, this is going to be a good experience. Then you have one where it seems like it just feels weird when you're playing it. Half of the players don't seem like they really know what they're doing, and you either like massively lose or massively win because it depends on which one of the teams they're on. But you have like 2 or 3 people that legitimately look like they're letting their little brother play or something, and that they've never been there. I had a guy today that couldn't put rook armor down. Like every time he tried to put it down, he'd stop and like shoot at the floor and like super confused, and did nothing for the whole game. And I don't know if he was purposely trolling, if it was boosted one or what made that happen. But there's a lot of those like in Plat 1 Diamond and Champ, which shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
Then you have like the massive influx of Smurfs, where we're all paranoid, and I don't blame anyone for it, and I am as well. When I see a level 90 anime picture, there's 2 options. Either they're cheating, or they're good players, and they're so sick of cheating that they're playing on a second account.
Yeah.
But I can't tell the difference. Because if it's little like MLG 420 kid who has a god tier aim, zooming around the map shooting people, he deserves the credit if he's good. He really does. But if he's hiding on a level 90 account called Ayaya with some anime picture, I can't tell the difference between him and the troglodyte cheater that's just, you know, turned it up to 11. So the problem is like those people should have been getting the praise for the good performance, right? That's why it's a shame that most pros play on Smurfs, most streamers, most content creators, or well, not even Smurfs, but just second accounts. Like I have a second account as well, and I've played enough on it that my second account is level 309.
Jeez.
But that's because the being on your main, if people know, is not always nice.
No.
Like pretty much no matter who you are, there's gonna be people. Like you could be the nicest person in the world. If there are people out there willing to troll Maisie in game,
Yeah.
then you know it's like there are some lost causes out there. So you kind of have to play on different accounts, right? But it's so extreme now that like I don't get how there can be that many level 70s and 90s and 60s. They eventually climb out of that unless you have so many of them. And if you have that many of them, then you're negatively affecting the game.
And it's damaging the game in so many different ways, okay? And let me be real here. I don't blame anybody for having 2 accounts.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about people with 2, even 3 accounts. If you've got 5 accounts though, and you play on 5 accounts regularly and ranked every season, something's wrong. Like something's wrong. You're like there's something going on there. And here's the deal: if you're a diamond and you are on your 5th Smurf of the season and you're down in the gold ranks, how do you think you're playing those matches? Are you playing a Cade on site? You know, putting your utility up on the walls and trying to be a good teammate that way? No. You're playing Ella and you're trying to spawn peek with a pistol. That's what you're doing. Okay? And it's affecting the experience of every single other person in that lobby, and it takes Siege away from what it should be and what it's most enjoyable as for everybody else, to this frag fest where it's 3v5 in the first 30 seconds, and now the attackers are left with Sledge, Zofia, and Ash trying to execute on site. That's the way that I see it, and you know, it's unfortunate. I don't know.
I definitely think the addition of unranked has helped that a lot.
Definitely.
Because personally, I used to just have, well, I have 3 accounts that I swap between, usually for the solo series. But now for this season, like I've not had to use any of them, because with unranked, I just stream unranked all the time. I never play ranked on stream. I never really record ranked unless I hop on one of my other accounts to play with friends because they want to play ranked. But unranked has allowed me to just have fun with the game. Usually I still get somewhat evenly matched lobbies. Like sometimes you'll get the coppers or bronzes who find their way into your lobby. But for unranked, I now play like normally plat 3 gold lobbies. And I just meme. I can have fun, do whatever I want. I don't have to worry about swapping to another account and doing that in a lower rank if I want to have fun.
What does that say, though, that the unranked lobbies you're more likely to find an even match in an unranked lobby than a ranked lobby.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Especially, I think the cheaters have definitely skewed that a bit because sometimes I'll be in like Plat 3 going against a champion stack, but they're all stuck in Plat 3 because they just lost 500 elo to rollback
Yeah.
from a bunch of cheaters. So like I don't know. It's definitely more enjoyable, but it shouldn't be. You should be more enjoying the competitiveness of ranked. It's just not there right now. Or harder to get, I guess.
On that note with cheaters, by the way, there's been a lot banned lately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Been
Like that
getting
battle
rollback
life
every
feed has
time
just
I
been
log
going
on.
dung 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 dung. Dung. Yeah, I think I've gotten more rollback. I said this last season, but I think I've gotten more rollback this season than last season and everything before that.
Wow. Well, that's good and
It's
bad.
been insane. Well, I mean, good because it means that people are getting caught. Right? Like,
Yeah.
whether I'm losing or gaining elo, I got kicked into diamond because of rollback. Like, that's a weird thing though, because that is the least enjoyable diamond I've ever done.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
You're plat 1 sitting there chilling, you log in and you're like, boom, diamond. Wait, what? Why? I didn't like earn this or grind my way up there. There's no, joy in getting it. It was just, okay, we got 270 points back from cheaters. Nice. Yeah, that it kind of sucks, but I'm glad that it exists. I don't know what the happy medium is there because it's not nice losing elo, and it feels really good to get elo, but you either have both or you have none. And I don't really know that elo rollback system. It probably has to be there because it takes a while to ban people. It just does. And some of the crazy cheater boys, if they insta ban them, they're just back on a new account. If they don't figure out what they're using, it doesn't stop them, right? Like they'll be on a new account 5 minutes later, no matter how many times they keep banning them. Well, it's not been too bad the last couple of days, at least.
Yeah,
The
like
start of the season was bad.
I've gone rollback twice this season on my main account, but I think I've only played about 40 matches, so like 5% rate of cheaters.
Wow.
And I lost elo in both cases. So like we did actually get a clip of one of the people who were pretty sure just got banned, and he wasn't blatantly cheating, but he had closet cheats because he was like aiming from clubhouse rafters to the garage door and constantly just flicking to the wall, like trying to lock onto someone's head, but then stopping himself. So like that's the biggest extent I've gone. I actually had more blatant cheaters in unranked than ranked.
Yeah.
From people trying to level their account up, and then obviously when you call them out on it, they're like, I don't care, it's a $2 account, I'll buy a new one as soon as it's banned.
That right there is the single. We can talk about Tachanka, we can talk about whatever we want. If Siege could somehow find a way to prevent people from playing this game with more than one account, you would fix 99% of the problems that plagues the average player. I don't know how they can do it. I can't offer any suggestions here, but my God, imagine if when they banned a cheater that person literally never played Siege again. Imagine what the world would look like today.
On top of that, you'd also have the benefit of, like, if you're an up-and-coming player and you get noticed for being good, like maybe someone accuses you of cheating, right? Like let's say you're little Jimmy there, you're level 150, and you were playing well, and people are going, damn, man, like what's happening here? But once you start seeing the same guy over like 2 months, 3 months, and he's just playing well, he's going to build a rep. He's staying on the same account, right? Day he turns 18, he has a Pro League spot. Like, how many people have that happened to? Right? Yep. Like, people thought Bolo was cheating at one point. People thought Doki was cheating, Shaiko, Pingu, whatever. Like, everyone has at some point been accused of it that plays at a higher level. But they stuck to their account. At least back then people did.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds grandpa-like, but old Siege people generally played on the same account. Like, sure, there was less people, but when you played, you knew most of the people in the rank you were playing in. Or at least you had seen them plenty of times before. Yeah. So you start building like a strong community. You know who's the good ones, who's the bad ones. Now half of them are level 60s with barcodes. Like, I have no idea. It could be Varsity I'm playing against, or it could be, Jeff with 9 different cheats running at the same time. and I won't know. And I think that creates like a pretty shitty environment to play in.
For sure.
The fact that there's no correlation. I don't know if the barcode I played against now is the same barcode as tomorrow or the day before, right?
Creates a lot of paranoia. I mean, it's just the
Yeah.
paranoia is insane in ranked. On this topic, we all make YouTube videos and we're all content creators. Varsity and I have been talking about this a little bit, but and this will be, I think, I'm looking at the agenda here. This will be probably the last doom and gloom. I know we've been a little bit doom and gloom this time, but we'll get a little bit more positive after this. But something I want to talk about, like, have you guys noticed like a downturn in YouTube video views as far as Siege related content? Have you noticed anything on Twitch? You know, to me, it seems like there is a little bit less interest in YouTube videos right now, the Siege related YouTube videos. I have a couple theories about what might be going on, but I'm wondering if you guys are kind of feeling the same way.
I'm just gonna pull up my analytics, but Zarnik, if you have anything to throw in before I pull
I think
it all
mine have
up.
dropped a little bit. Like on YouTube, Twitch hasn't. I don't see any change there. I don't see any engagement change in Twitter either, for that matter. YouTube has dropped a little. I think maybe Siege isn't being promoted as much algorithmically as it was before. But I know for a fact that there are some that are just not like Marley, for example. He does pretty damn well still. Like there seems to be no change there whatsoever. I think most of the funny YouTube content for Siege, like the happy, joyful stuff, is still getting consumed a lot. I'm probably gonna get flack for it, but I think the main reason that we're seeing viewership drop is because everyone's so goddamn pissy with everything. The community isn't generally happy right now. Like the most of the interactions are negatively loaded. They're about how everything's horrible and bad and blah blah blah, and it's kind of lost its "this is a game we're having fun" thing. So I think that has impacted it. Then on top of that, I think that COVID has probably done a little as well, because now people have, or some people have time for hobbies. They're getting more involved in other things, and that like watching those 2 YouTube videos that you otherwise would have done that day, maybe you're watching something else. And there's ups and downs. Like I think that's probably the biggest one. Games just have like ups and downs. And it doesn't even have to have anything to do with the quality of the game or the state of the game. There's going to be like troughs and valleys or whatever it's called with anything, right? I think with esport that's happening as well. We've seen it in CS where seemingly for no reason all of a sudden there's a massive viewer increase and then there's a massive dip, and it doesn't really add up why they're there. And other times it's around a major or around big content releases that there's an increase, and then we start looking at like invitational and we're like, oh, it's dropped from this and this, and yeah, of course it has, right? Like there's not going to be the same amount of hype around it. But I think it's very different if we're talking about like individual channels or if we're talking about the esport, because the esport part, I think there's also just too much of it. I can't watch all of it anymore, and I used to, but now I gotta like I can watch EU and then I can fall asleep to NA. I don't have time for more. So it'll saturate my Siege needs enough that I will watch less.
So for me personally, I have noticed like a pretty large dip in viewership. So just pulling up here, towards when the season first launched, I was averaging anywhere between 300,000 to 400,000 views per day on my channel overall. And now it's dipped down to about 200 or sometimes below that. So almost like a 33 to 50% drop. The biggest one was subscribers. So a month ago, I was averaging about 1,300 subs a day, sometimes up to 2,000 if a popular video came out.
You're a fucking animal. Let me just say that real quick. You are an animal, but go ahead.
And then Saturday, I got 83 subs in one day. So going from 2,000 to 83, I feel like there has to be so much more there than just Siege dying. And the reason why I say that now is because Monday, on Monday I got 840 subs. So going from 83 to 840 in 2 days, that seems to me more like a YouTube thing rather than a Siege thing. And I've been trying to deep dive into this a lot because I've been talking to other creators like Roy, Coconut, Skittles, and all of us have, on YouTube it says how your video ranks to the previous 10. Every single video has been 9, 10, like on the very bottom, just downwards trends. And when I was deep diving onto the subreddit for YouTube, a lot of people were saying that their recommendation feeds were just one channel and like 50 videos, like all XQC highlights or all like random streamer highlights from different channels. So I think YouTube has been tweaking how they're recommending things and how notifications pop up, because that's also another thing. A lot of people aren't getting notifications anymore, even though they have it on. So I think YouTube is just really messing with their algorithm, and it's primarily been affecting gaming channels, especially with the huge uprise in other games like Among Us that came out of nowhere and is now just completely taking over YouTube. So I think that's kind of been affecting us, because now they're just not recommending us to other people when there's more content out there for them to watch.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I would say my channel is down about 30%. Will be about what I would say. And then same thing, like I upload a video and I feel really good about it, and then it goes like 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 on a good day. So I'm experiencing the same thing. I do think one thing I'll say about Siege, I do think there's a little bit less interest in Siege currently. And here's what I'll throw at you. There was a free weekend, obviously, right before the season launched, as there always is. Normally, you'll get on Steam charts during that, and you'll see a pretty significant bump in players during the free weekend. This time, I didn't notice. Like, if I didn't know it was a free weekend, I wouldn't have been able to tell from Steam charts. So, again, it's Steam charts. That's not the whole player base. We get it, but that's I keep a pretty close eye on that. Generally, during a free weekend, you're going to be able to tell, and you couldn't this time. I think maybe there's a couple things going on. I agree with what you're saying about the recommendations. I noticed that in my feed. Like, my feed right now is nothing but like really like viral videos. Like, not like specific to my interest. It's just like straight up viral videos. And I have a theory that maybe the election is messing with it a little bit. And here's my thinking. There's a ton of election money going into YouTube right now, like ads for the election. But the way that it works, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I know that like part of the allure to advertising on YouTube, you can be very selective about the audience you want to advertise to. So a ton of money coming in. And if I'm somebody who's spending that money, I don't want to run a political ad on a gaming video, probably in general. But I also definitely don't want to run a political ad to anybody who's under the age of 18 and can't actually vote. Okay? So is it possible that YouTube needs to display all these ads that they have this money from, because these politicians are spending a ton of money on them, and they need to suggest videos to people who they can place these ads on, and that it fits inside the criteria that the advertiser wants to show it to? Do you know what I'm saying? So they're much less likely to show an ad on a video that maybe that, like, if my video, if my channel generally gets viewers between the ages of 16 and 24 or something, and another channel, their majority of their viewers is between 18 and 32 or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Are they more likely to suggest those videos because they can run those political ads on them? That's one theory.
That wouldn't work unless... That cannot be true unless the only thing you've lost is American viewers.
True. And
no one else in the entire world cares about that.
Right.
Like, and I haven't seen a single ad for anything US politically based on YouTube ever. So maybe if you've dropped a lot of NA viewers, I could believe that could possibly be it. But then the rest shouldn't be that affected. Unless it's some sort of snowballing thing where, because you've lost like 10% quickly, then you lose something else because you're less interesting.
Yeah, YouTube does that.
But I will say, but after you mentioned this with recommendation, Basti, that's true for me as well. I've noticed that if I watch one video, and it can be like the most random thing, all of a sudden I just have, like, my recommended feed is just a ton of that. Like, it's very aggressive. It doesn't really look like a week back on what I was watching a week ago. All of a sudden, it's just that everywhere. So if I go down the rabbit hole of like being on a YouTube marathon and watching a shit ton of stuff, it gets very skewed, and it'll take like a couple of days before I start getting some of the the old content that I enjoyed back into the feed again. So maybe they just changed the algorithm enough that it's noticeably worse.
Yeah. A lot of the
'cause
things that I saw were like they would see on the recommended feed, it would just be 25 videos all from the same channel. They're all super short. So I assume it would probably be something like if it's a short 20-second clip, it's going to have a very high retention percentage, right? Because it's 20
sure.
seconds, everyone's just going to watch it through. So then they just promote the shit out of it to everyone who's tuning in. A lot of those posts were also just like small accounts. Like you don't really know for sure what their watch history was or what their normal recommended feed is like. So it's kind of hard to tell for sure. And I can't really tell myself because I actually have my watch history off. So YouTube doesn't recommend me anything. All it shows is just my sub feed. So I can't really say for myself either. But I feel like it has to either be the recommended feed bugging out, the notifications maybe bugging out. I did a poll on my community, and of the people who have notifications on, about 50% said they weren't getting notifications anymore, even though they had them on.
How many didn't see the poll out of the ones that then
I can pull it up. I think it had a decent amount of votes. Let me see.
It's probably
so,
a
like,
mix of the whole stuff, right? Like it's all of the things at once.
Yeah,
the
so
thing
like
that's
my
happening...
normal
Go ahead.
my normal viewership is around like 100 to 130K per video, and I got 84,000 votes on the poll. So like that's pretty indicative of my community.
Yeah.
And so I had like 3 options. 2 were for notifications, 1 wasn't. Like if you don't have any notifications, so I just ignore that section. And for the notifications on, it's like almost 45% don't get them anymore. So a lot of people are saying that that might be the cause, and I think they might have fixed it just because since my sub count just went up again back to normal, I feel like they might be recommending more because most of my videos were doing well within my community, but not getting recommended as much.
The whole subscriber thing is really abnormal because I've been experiencing the same thing. Now, obviously my numbers aren't as high as yours, but scaled down, same thing. Like, you know, I'm averaging this much and it's always kind of been that way. And then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, boom, I'm talking like, you know, and to me, what that means is that that's a reflection of how often YouTube is suggesting your content to new viewers.
Yeah.
That's what I take from that. So when that happens, something happened to where they're not showing our videos to new viewers. If that's
I'm
fixed or
down
not.
exactly 30% as well. Exactly 30% in the last 20
And everyone
days.
I've talked to it's 30 to 40%. It's always that exact range.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's too many people for it to just be a freak accident. It's a very big like correlation between all of us.
I would be interested to talk to a gaming creator that's not Siege related and see like, but and I can say from just the eyeball test, like I follow a lot of Call of Duty YouTubers still, like Drifter, you know, the Black Ops Cold War beta was this past weekend, and I was looking at his views. They to me it seemed much lower than I expected. Maybe there's not a lot of interest in that game or whatever, but normally for the Call of Duty beta, this is like the time when Drifter is going to be getting like the most views on his videos. To me, it didn't seem normal. So
I do think, to go back to your comment about the election, I think that does have an effect. It might not be the whole reason, but let's say YouTube puts out the video, or you put out the video and YouTube's putting ads on it, and it says, okay, it's Siege. You can't run election ads on this. So they're going to put it lower on their priority because YouTube wants to make money. So they want to show as many ads as possible. And then because of this, since you're getting less views, it's the algorithm saying, oh, you're not getting as many views. I'm not going to push you as much, because we all know that if you have a lower click-through rate, YouTube recommends the video less, and it starts to kind of spiral.
yeah.
So I think it's kind of like what you said. It's a snowball effect of they don't want to run ads on it. You get less views. Because you get less views, they recommend it less. Because it's recommended less, sub counts are going down, view counts are going down. Surprisingly, ad revenue for me hasn't gone down as much. It's like still roughly the same, but it's just views and subs are plummeting and now hopefully rising back up.
Well, you know what? Here's the bright side. Okay, this is where we're gonna turn this podcast around, boys. We're gonna start getting positive. All right.
Hit me with your hipster shit.
Because of all this election money, let's say that I am a toy manufacturer and I'm going to spend my advertising budget for Christmas, which is what a lot of people do. I mean, Christmas, fall time is usually the big advertising. I'm not advertising right now because the election advertisements have probably driven the ad rates through the roof. So I'm waiting until after the election. So from November 3rd on, I bet ad revenue on YouTube is going to be A plus. I would expect that, and it normally is. I'm just saying we might even notice it because instead of the toy company advertising from October through December, you might see them advertise from November 3rd through December. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. It's also really hard for us to judge because a lot of us look at like patterns, right? You and me, Flanked, have talked a lot about Phantom Sight being like that June of was that 2019 was like the best month I've ever had on YouTube at that time. And so like it's easy to look back at patterns and be like, okay, why is June this year worse than that year? But like the last time there was an election was in 2016, which was like Siege wasn't that popular, at least to the point where we can really notice the trends. So maybe this huge dip, if it is because of the election, we can't really attribute it to that or have a hard time knowing if it's that because we don't have the patterns from 4 years ago to really compare it.
Sure.
Whereas like when I'm looking at June from 2019 to 2020, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, why is this different? What happened here? So I think it's a lot harder for us to put exactly like blame to whatever it is because we don't know for sure.
And I think COVID is playing a role in this in the sense that, at least where I live, so everybody's been kind of on lockdown for going back to like March of 2020, and then in the summer, you started to ease that, and then now the fall, at least where I live, and I live in a smaller town, people are kind of trying to get back to normal. It's not there. Don't get me wrong. Like it's nowhere near normal where I live, but my kids are back in school at least part of the time, and there's stuff going on. It's definitely closer to normal than it's been since March. Okay, so I guess a theory I would throw at you is like since March, people were consuming a lot of digital content, a lot of Netflix, a lot of YouTube, a lot of gaming. Everything kind of saw a little bit of a bump there, I think, especially in the beginning. And now people are kind of excited to get back to school, to work maybe, to football practice, to soccer practice, to do really anything that they haven't been able to do for the last 6 months. So maybe that would explain it a little bit.
I think you'll see a boost once people start getting back to their lives instead. Like once things turn normal, like just take Siege for example. Like all events are non-existent. There's way more hype around events. People are happier. There's like the Twitter feed is less shitty because let's be fair, for the last week, that there has been very few positive things on Twitter at all, like within Siege. It's just been drama. This isn't good. Blah blah blah. People fighting for whatever reason. It's been bad, right? There is no way that makes people want to engage more. They want to drop their quick opinion and then that's it. And then maybe there's a few that like dedicate themselves to doing that the whole night. But for most rational people, you just go there, you read, and you're like, okay, I'm coming back tomorrow, right? Maybe once when things clear up a bit and we can have events again, everything's going to be a little bit more down to earth and I don't know if I want to say jolly and happy, but like a little more humane, right?
Yeah.
I think that will have a positive impact on viewers on everything. Players, viewers, in-game behavior as well. I'd be willing to bet that the player behavior cell in like Locked to Siege can see a difference in behavior with reports in terms of toxicity during COVID versus before and after. That has to be a measurable thing.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I am 100% sure that there is like a little spike with people being forced to they have nothing else to do. And maybe you're playing a little more than you were before. And maybe you're in a bit worse of a mood. Maybe you can't work. Maybe school's off, whatever it is, right? And these like real life factors are bothering you. So an easy outlet is to get angry at Jeff for not playing Ashe the right way. I feel like there's at least been, like, generally Twitch chat has been worse in most places.
Yep.
Yeah,
noticed that a
okay. So
lot.
okay, so not the only one that noticed that.
What do you guys notice as far as Twitch viewership? Any difference? Is it down? Is it normal?
Same for me.
I
Okay,
can
well,
quickly
that's a
check,
good
but
sign for the game.
I think personally, I think my Twitch viewership has gone down about 20%, but I also stream at a time where Pro League is always on now.
Yes, that costs you.
So yeah, like it's very hard to tell for sure, but yeah, like a month ago I was usually averaging around like 1500 to 1800, and now it's around 900 to 1200 depending on whether Pro League's on or not. Like that's the biggest factor.
Yeah, my average, so my average dipped, but I think that has more to do with me doing certain streams that people just don't want to watch. Like, I'm playing squad for 200 people. That's gonna pull the viewer average down, right? Last month I was averaging around 1,000, and now it's like around 800 to 700. But if I have 1 or 2 days of playing squad with like 200 viewers, that's tanking the average, right?
Sure.
For that week or for that month. Like if I think if I stick to Siege and it was like a 5 to 6, 8 hour stream every day of Siege, I don't think there would be any noticeable change to anything. And I don't think I can see it on other streams either. There is overall less people watching Siege, just in general. Like normally when I log on, Siege used to always be at like around 15 to 16k ish. It was almost always around that. It was very steady. And now sometimes when I log on, there's like 6,000 people watching Siege.
Yeah. There's been a pretty big dip there.
Yeah, there are some pretty massive dips. I think certain other game releases, stuff like that. I mean, some of just the community stuff. That like, there's without a doubt people. Like I know for a fact that I have people that watch the stream that have stopped playing Siege. Most of them, actually, I guess that spirals back to some of the other. Most of the feedback I get is that people don't like playing it because of the people they played with. That's at least what I normally get. There's that every now and then there's a guy going, I don't want to play it more because of this and this operator or map or whatever. But most of the time, it's also a little older audience than general in my chat. But most of them are because they're like fed up with toxic people in game. And not so much that they have issues with the game, because they still enjoy watching it. Because they'll watch me when I play Siege, but they're not watching when I play something else. So they're still interested in the game. They just don't want to play it because of the community, right?
I think another thing that's factored Twitch, like viewership or changed Twitch viewership, is you mentioned how the events bring up a lot of hype, which is true. But right now with COVID, you have, instead of one weekend where everyone's like hyped about it, all the content creators are there, they're all talking about it.
24/7.
Yeah, and it's for 3 days. Now it's, what was it? A 2-week period where it was like 3 days for NA, like 2-day break, 3 days for APAC, 2-day break, and it just like it's too much. You can't expect people to watch all of that the entire time. So let's say someone's gonna watch the whole weekend in a normal situation because they want to see how NA does. Now they're only going to want to watch just the NA portion, and APAC, Latin America, all that's just going to suffer.
Yep.
So yeah, viewership might have dropped down, but it's hard to tell whether it's because of like people losing interest or because of that. Like personally, I'm not going to sit there and watch every single tournament for every single sub region. That's just too much.
Yep. And then the main channel is on like 24/7.
Yeah, exactly.
Which will hurt the average viewership on that as well by a ton. If the main channel was only used for the big games, then average viewers would look better on the main channel, right? But I mean, it sucks to see like a Pro League game with 5k views or 10k views, because we've seen it have way more. But there's too much to consume. I think when I still did some of the EUL stuff, that was on the good side of like 30 something hours a week just watching comp games. Like, that's a lot of time, man, if you wanna keep up with everything, right? Because it's not enough just watching the games that you're on. You have to watch the other ones and like kind of be in the loop with everything. It's too much for any like reasonable person to watch all of it. It's a full-time job just to consume it.
On top of your already full-time job or school or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you just don't have the time.
Another thing that I'm getting a lot of feedback on right now, and this is, I'm not blaming anybody for this because I think they're doing the best they can with the cards they were dealt, but people can't follow the current format with Pro League, with the fact that different regions have different formats. Also, you just look at like the NAL. What match is important? There's not really a bracket that you can clearly follow. There's this weird group system, and then from this group, they go to a different group, and then they play in that group, and then the people in that group go to the major, and then they play again. Like, for example, Dark Zero has played TSM like 5 times this season, and they played Oxygen for the first time last night. They still have never played Disrupt. So,
oh, really? Jeez.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird the way, like, there's no real, like, so imagine being just like a casual viewer of Pro League and being like, you tune in, okay, NA League is on, okay, these teams are playing, but you have no sense of progression. Like, okay, it's because they're playing because this team beat this team and this team beat this team. No, like, you don't really follow that. And I think it makes it all very climactic or very anticlimactic because at the end, they're just playing again instead of going to an international LAN where they're going to play against other regions. It doesn't feel impactful, I guess, is the way I would describe it.
It would all have been better if we still had live events, because all the hype is killed. And it's not to take it away from anyone, but I don't care who's the best in their region. I care who's the best in the world.
Yep. It's true.
Like, it's cool to win your national things. Like, great, man. But you do that to compete with the rest of the world. That's what you build up to, right? Like, you become the best in NA to play against the rest of the world. You become the best in Europe to play against the best in NA, and blah blah blah. Like, the air's kind of out of the balloon at that point, where, like, first off, I can't keep up with the format on all the different ones. EU is different than NA, is different than APAC, is different than Canada and Mexico, and like, all of it is just, you don't really know what's going on unless you dedicate yourself to it. And there's not one place where I can go and just see an easy, simple, like, bracket, who's playing against who and when and where and what. There's CSGG, which is pretty good, but it still doesn't give me like the full picture of how, like, why are they different, right? Like, if I'm new and come into it, why is EU and NA different, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless you work within it and someone has explained to you why it is, you probably don't know, even if you watch it every day. That kind of sucks, because they should be the same everywhere. That would be a lot easier to follow.
Well,
and then when they never get to compete against each other, you don't get that excitement, because we can't have this big fun discussion about who's better, EU and NA, right? Or APAC or LATAM. Like, we need that. It's what esports about.
The only reason that esports is suffering right now in Siege, though, is because the casters don't play the game enough and don't have a high enough KD.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yes, you need a 2 KD to be able to cast.
To anybody watching, that was a joke. There was a big controversy within the community recently about, how much the casters are playing the game, and should somebody who casts Siege Pro League or Siege Esports be playing the game more than what they currently are? That question was raised, and you can have your own take on it. Zoronic, you've been involved obviously more than either me or Varsity have. So what's your take on that?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous and a brainlet take that you would ever be forced to, like, I'd even go as far as say that you could be a great caster without ever having, like, played the game. We don't have anyone that is, but I'm sure that is possible. I still think you can get a good understanding for it without being in it. Like, I don't see this argument where people say, well, if you don't play it, then you can't understand it. That's bullshit. We have plenty of people that study things that they never actually get to touch, and they can be plenty good at it, right? Your perfect football commentator might not play football, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they go out and kick a ball every day. I don't get what the correlation is there. As a caster, your job is to hype up the game, explain what's happening, and that's about it. You don't need the deep understanding of this pixel here to this thing here does this when that thing does this. Like, you can't explain all of it when it's happening anyway. I'll say, like, from if you're on the analyst role of it, I'd rather you are less good at talking and understand more about the game, because that's the technical aspect. But the analyst desk is still a glorified pee break, right? Like, it is for every sport. Most people leave to get popcorn when they're on. And I've been on that desk, and I like it hurts to know that that's the case, but that's just how it is. It's a filler, and it's there to make sure that the show doesn't have to go on a break. That's why you need it. So you don't always put up a commercial or a pause will be back in X amount of minutes. For the casters, hell no. Like, if they don't want to play it, they watch more Siege than you play the game, right? So for your average viewer, they spend more time talking about Siege than you do playing it. They probably have a pretty decent understanding. They don't need to be able to beat you in that. I don't think a boxing commentator needs to be willing to jump in the ring. I just don't believe that there is any logic to that. It's always pulled up like the Formula One driver and the car engineer, right? Or the pit crew. Like, the guy changing the tire, if we take it to because this was the same thing that was like thrown at devs. The devs don't have high enough KDs. And they're all Blackbeard mains. It's because when you check an R6 tab, it defaults to Blackbeard if you don't have any rank stats. Like, a dev doesn't have to have a high KD. They don't have to have many hours in the public version of the game. They play the test build, right? Their job is to make it, not to play it. The professional chef doesn't need to cook at home. Like, I just think it's a childish thing, and I don't think any like reasonable person that has ever had a real damn job would say that. I think it's an extremely entitled take, and it's only there for clout chase and just to get a reaction.
Well, Varsity, why did you put that tweet out then?
I do want to throw something out there that it'll sound bad when I say it, but what I'm gonna say is I do agree with them to the point where, like, where I think they're coming from is that they believe that if you don't have the game time, that you're not learning outside of that. They probably believe that these casters are just being thrown in with 5 hours of game time and they've never studied Siege before. So if that's what they think, then I agree with like what their rationale is. But the reality of it is that these casters aren't going in completely blind. Like, they have studied Siege for, like you said, more hours than people play in a week. So it's pretty much unfounded. There definitely probably could be some improvements made. Like, no caster's perfect, no analyst is perfect. And maybe some game time could solve that so they can, I guess, put themselves more in the situation. But I mean, we have like Parker, who's probably one of the best casters in like the scene, or like one of the longest standing ones.
And one of the worst players out of all the casters.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, when he started, he said he was like a bronze with 20 hours in the game. But like, look at how far he's come. He's become very good at casting, and personally is one of the most enjoyable to watch because he knows what he's talking about, because he studied the game so much. He doesn't have to actually play it and be super good. Or like we saw, I think it was someone on G2 mentioned, what's her coach, Shas?
Mm-hmm.
Shas, yeah.
Yeah, he's like gold 3 and barely plays the game in ranked.
Yeah.
But he coached G2 through their, like, what was it, 1.5 year win streak?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be a champion to know what you're talking about.
I think that the two biggest issues is that it's fine that you want to give the criticism when you're on Twitter. There's nothing wrong with that. They can all take it, right? Like, no, I promise you, not a single one of the casters is gonna like lose sleep over Jimmy being upset that you're not doing it good enough. They're like, you look at it and you go, maybe it's right, maybe it's not, and then you mainly focus on the feedback you get from the people that hire you, because it's your job.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be more like, it's more important to satisfy the people you work for when it comes to that. So you have your job. That might be hard for some of the 12-year-old angry people on Twitter to relate to, but there are certain things that you have to do. There are certain things you can and can't do. There are requirements set for you. You do get paid, so you need to live up to certain expectations. They're not going to hire someone who is just completely clueless. They are willing to help you. There's plenty of things that can help you improve if you want to. And there are plenty of people that could take that spot if they wanted to, and like put themselves out there. But it's very easy to go and say like, this new caster, I don't like this person. I don't like this person. But funny enough, like if they stay for a while, people slowly calm down and they start, okay, it's not that bad, right? It's always the new people. And we see this like Golden Boy, when we had him at the major. He did fantastic. The one thing he fucked up was he got a player name wrong that was not his fault. Someone called out the wrong player. Everyone got on his back. Oh, horrible. How can he be here? It's so awful, right? But people forgot that Matt Andrews did the exact same thing with one of the Liquid players at one point. We cling to like what feels comfortable and what we're used to. So after like Kix and Intero got to mainly be on NA, a ton of the EU casters got flagged for it. It's like it's their fault that they're not casting it. I just think that's a disgusting take.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, dude, be my guest. Try to catch up with any of them. They're not perfect, sure, and it's going to take a very, very long time for anyone to be. But if the pro player is allowed to make mistakes, then the casters are as well. And I'll challenge any one of the loud people on Twitter to take the same amount of public pressure that any of the casters do, and handle that even remotely as good as they do. I'd like to see that, because some of the I don't think the guy, like writing a tweet going, oh, it's so horrible, I want the other one back, would have taken it so well if it was like 50,000 people telling him that he sucked at what he did. So it's all about like, give your feedback, but just be respectful.
It kind of circles back to the tweet that I put out, where it's just like, if you go to someone and just shit on them, they're gonna like take it personally and not want to change, more so to spite you than anything. Whereas if you say, hey, you can work on this, like this is where there was a bit of an issue, they'll be much more receptive to the feedback.
But I mean, there's also this assumption that everyone thinks their opinion is so important. I think that's a weird thing. Like you might not, let's say you don't like a certain caster and I don't like them. Why does that matter? Right? Like they're casting it. Maybe we don't like, but we like the other one. But like, I shouldn't go up to them and say, you need to change this because I don't like it. That's such a weird take, that just because I don't like it, you have to change. I don't get that. Like, turn it down if you don't like the certain caster that is on, turn it down. Like, it's not that important. You don't need to go out and tell the whole world that this person is horrible and you don't like them. Like, bro, it's a weird thing. And I promise you that you writing that is not magically going to make them better.
Yeah.
Either they are aware of the things that they need to improve on and trying, or nothing's going to change anyway. Your angry tweet is not going to make someone go out there and go, oh, yes, that's true. He said, I need to do this different. I have to do that. Like, if it's a super respectful tweet, I'm all for it, man. But we don't always have to give our feedback on every person ever. Like, I don't think any of them would ever want it for themselves, but they are very quick to give it.
Yeah, I'm sure we all receive that a lot in Twitch chat.
Oh, yeah.
Like people come in all the time to me because like I'm fairly monotone, I'm fairly calm, I don't really rage at the game. They're like, be happier. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
can you please smile more? Wait, what?
like I'm doing what I want to do. Like if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. Obviously, I want to attract more viewers if I can, but I'm not just going to bend over backwards for every little complaint or issue that they have.
I mean, that's the same with a sub, right? Like, paying you $3.50 is not going to give you the right to just be a horrible asshole. Like, it just doesn't. You don't get any like elevated status of bad behavior just because you do that. That's a weird thing on Twitch, where people have this assumption that, oh, I gave you money, so now I can tell you what to do.
I own you.
Yeah, like, yo, streamer, do this. No, but I paid you. Okay, but it's not happening, buddy.
Yeah.
I've got one more topic here that I wanted to get to as we kind of wrap it up here. But Varsity, you wanted to talk about the operator rework flow or schedule. I should have mentioned this whenever we were talking about the Tachanka, but I wanted to make sure we get to it because I guess you have something. Did you want to mention about how the reworks are being done?
I'm sure we all remember when Glass got reworked, and it was a mid-season patch, and it completely destroyed Pro League at the time, and like the flow of the game, because we went from, just a normal tactical push to then everyone has to have a Glass. You have to smoke, plant, Glass will cover and kill everyone. And after that, I'm pretty sure Ubisoft publicly said that they would no longer release big changes for the mid-season because it was too disruptive. That they were only going to do like small balances throughout the season. And then now with Tachanka coming out, it begs the question of whether they're going to go back on their word, or if they think that this isn't too game disrupting that they can release Tachanka, presumably halfway through the season. We don't know when he's coming out, but I'm just naturally assuming it's probably going to be like in a month or so. So I'm wondering if in the future, if they're going to continue to do like one new operator at the beginning, one rework in the middle, and then kind of still keep like, I guess, the overall two new operator type of thing and try to spread it out a little bit more, or whether they'll go to a system where they release it at the beginning of a season with the new operator.
I think you're going to see quarantine no matter what.
For pro play.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for the public, you might as well release it. Who cares?
From a content creator perspective, I kind of hope that they do keep doing reworks in the middle of the season, because it's nice to have a kind of a boost in the middle, and from that perspective, I kind of like it. On the other hand, it does kind of make sense to me. We're going down to one operator per season, at least for the next 2 seasons, I guess. So it does kind of make sense. One new operator, one reworked operator, release them at the same time, and then they both are quarantined for the same amount of time, and that kind of seems neater to me, but I don't know.
How many changes did we get with this patch? Would you have wanted an extra operator at the same time? For me, like, I play 8 hours a day, and there was enough for me to catch up with.
True.
With the changes. I think if there was another operator in at the same time, and I kind of like, I prefer that they release them in pairs, but if it's true what I think was JB said when he was on last time, when he kind of giggled at us saying that Shadow Legacy had a lot of stuff in it, he went, haha, that's nothing. You should wait and see the next one, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's true, I think it'd be nice with a little, like, month buffer after release for whatever crazy stuff they're going to throw in after, just so we can, like, kind of catch up. Mm-hmm. Just reinforcement pool in itself, for me, is as much as a new operator, because that allows half of the team to run out and set up different things and like expand, and gives you so many more options. Imagine if the reinforced hatchets made it in as well, and we got Sam and also Tachanka at the same time.
Yeah,
that's too much. I think to keep competitive kind of sane and fair, you make sure that if there's ever any operator rework where, I don't know how far it has to go, because like you could argue that Mossy losing a shotgun or Frost getting a shotgun or the weapon swap on Oryx and Melusi is pretty substantial. But something like Tachanka, that's a new operator. That should just be quarantined. End of story.
There's even a difference between that and the Jackal rework.
Yeah, I think stuff like when Impact Nades came out, that should not have come out in a mid-season. If I remember correctly, I think Impact Nades came out in a mid-season reinforcement. I'm pretty sure
that was year 2, right?
Probably.
Because Cav had C4 at launch, so it must have been year 2.
They'll correct me in the comments. That's for sure. But I'm pretty sure that Impact Nades came out during mid-season, and I think that was a little disrupted. And I think maybe Bulletproofs did as well. Bulletproof cameras
came out with Maestro, I want to say. Didn't it? Because I remember thinking at the time, why would they introduce this with Maestro at the same time?
think you might
Yeah,
be
I
right.
can't remember, to be honest. I mean,
It's
at
been
least
5 years. There's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It was that was a good like way to deal with the whole glass thing, was to implement that, but it came too late. The same with Warden. Like
Yeah.
it's a gatekeeper for making sure that we never get into that horrible glass meta again. But I think if they do like massive changes to an operator, quarantine them in competitive, and just let them loose to the public, let us test them.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not losing an invitational because Tachanka comes out early. I'm just having fun in ranked. That's it. Maybe
So
I'll
you
lose
prefer
some elo because it
mid-season?
takes
I
me
think
longer.
I prefer mid-season. What are you thinking, Varsity?
Um, like as a content creator, mid-season is really nice because I'm sure you guys have noticed usually it's first month is a huge boom, second month is like the downward trend, and then the last month is normally a boom again because test servers come out, like all new info is coming out, so everyone is excited for it. So having the mid-season in that one part where it's starting to downward trend would be nice to just kind of keep it like basically a monthly cycle where it's going to be boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
But as a player, it would also be a little annoying if everything kind of changes. Like let's say in the future, let's say Thermite gets reworked somehow, and you're in the middle of a season, you're trying to get to Diamond, and then suddenly the one operator that like you've known about and how to work with just gets completely reworked, and it kind of disrupts the flow of the game. Then I could see how that would be annoying, especially when you're in the middle of the season. But I don't think it would be enough to really warrant shifting it all to the beginning.
But we're at a stage where even if they were to remove your favorite operator, you should be able to swap onto something else, right? Like
Yeah. Like that's more of an indicator of the person rather than the
yeah.
game.
Let's say there was a Clash main out there that the only thing they played was Clash, and Clash gets disabled because of all the glitches and stuff for a season. There's other stuff that person can play, right? Like if a new thing gets implemented or reworked, I think yeah that's way more of a that person's problem than a community thing, because like there's not a single Tachanka main out there that is gonna not be able to get to Diamond because Tachanka changed, right?
Yeah.
And it happens to both teams, so they're gonna have the same issues you have. And at the end of the day, unless you're playing it for a living, it's just a goddamn game, right?
Exactly. I think we all need
it's
to
not
kind of
that
remember
important.
that right now. That might be the
Yeah.
moral of this episode of the podcast. It's just a game. Just chill out, man.
Just don't tell Ninja; he's gonna be upset.
Oh
With the
yeah,
weak
yeah.
mentality.
Don't tell Ninja. All right, let's wrap it up on that one, boys. Varsity, thank you so much for joining us, man. We're gonna have we'll have your YouTube, Twitch, Twitter down there. You also do a podcast, right? The Bag Boys podcast.
Yeah, but we're on hiatus now because
Okay.
where I live, we just went back into lockdown. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, so we're not doing anything right now, but
All right.
the rest is fine. Yeah.
All right, so Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, we'll have a link down there. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I cannot recommend Varsity's content to you enough, whether it's the streams or the videos. Great content creator within our scene. Anything else you wanted to say there, Varsity?
Not too much. Just try to be positive. Don't be screaming from the high heavens that everything's overpowered and making everyone else hate it. Just give it a chance. We'll see how it goes, and yeah, just overall be more positive. I think that was the moral of this podcast.
I agree. That's good. That's good to end on. So with that said, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
See ya.